Welcome back, Inebri-art. It is Andy, as always. Today, I am actually joined by Megan March of the Street Eaters, and you guys have a new album, Opaque, coming out on September 5th. But you also had a video drop yesterday.
We did, yeah, with
Yeah,
some specters.
Spectres. Congrats, man. Have you been any feedback on it yet?
Yeah, I think people like it.
Yeah, nice. I had a very weird experience. Because usually prior to a podcast, like I'll if it's a musician, I go on and put their music on, so I can kind of get the vibe. And when I put Street Eaters in, YouTube is like, "Do you mean street food in Vietnam? Do you mean street food?" And I'm like, "I know what I usually watch, but that's not what I'm trying to watch now."
Well, that might have to do with your algorithm.
Oh, it's definitely my algorithm. I watch. There's this one dude that I watch, and he's always like going to different countries and trying their street food and like learning like culturally what the people eat like in the big cities and then like out in the more rural areas. So when I put in street eaters, my algorithm was very confused.
Ah, well, sounds like you found us.
I did. Yeah, and very much like my vibe. I was digging that a lot. I am a punk fan. I actually just went and saw, is it 2 nights ago? 2 nights ago. No, what is today? Yeah, 2 nights ago. Me First and the Gimme Gimmes.
All right. That's
So
some classic skater
yeah,
punk, right?
yeah, it was so funny. Like I'm so old, and I was just like, oh, I didn't even realize how long that band's been around. It's time flies.
Yeah.
Um, so Opaque comes out on September 5th. Tell us about the album. Like what went into the album? Like is how's it differ from your other stuff? And
Sure. This one's really special because it's the first release that we've done with our guitarist Joan. We were a two-piece for a really, really long time. And in 2017, we did a tour with Screaming Females. And Marissa, the guitarist from that band, kind of opened our minds to the idea of having a guitar. Because I think for a really long time, we embraced the maximum from the minimum. So
yeah,
trying to make the most out of the two elements of drums and bass, and I guess three elements if you include vocals. Um, and so we were on tour, and like halfway through the 6 week tour, she was like, "Hey, y'all should cover Anthrax." And we were like, all right, kind of weird flex, but okay. Anthrax, and she's like, no, 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 no. Love like Anthrax, the Gang of Four song. And we were like, oh,
oh,
yeah. Okay, that makes total sense. And so, I studied like the drum parts and stuff while we were on our long drives through I think we were in Canada at that point. And then we started I think in Seattle trying to figure out the song during sound checks. And
hmm
so by the time I think we got to like LA, we would do a thing where we would finish up our set and let it ring out, and Maris would come up on stage and then just wail through the song with us. And John and I just really had such a great time playing with her. And, we had been a band for about 10 years at that point. We were just like, man, fuck it. Like, we can do whatever we want. Like, let's just see what happens. And so we were open to that. And we played with our friend Steve-O for a while, who played with us on the Simple Distractions EP. And he is just an amazing guitar player. And he plays with Yogurt Brain and the Tony Molina band. And he just got super busy, and we were super busy. And so there was a certain point where we are like, we let's see who else can play with us. And we had been jamming with Joan in another band called Difficult that Joan and I kind of started and then dragged John into.
hmm
Um, and so that band started kind of fizzling because our singer became a famous podcaster and author.
Okay.
And so she got really busy. And so we were like, hey, Joni, why don't you just slide on over here? And she was like, I always wanted to be a street eater. Um, so she's just the perfect addition to our band. And it's kind of funny that it seems so new, but really she's been playing with us for 5 years because of COVID. We had like practiced with her and we were all ready to start playing out together.
Yeah.
And then literally like we had our very first show together booked on like March 27th of that
Oh,
month. And, we all remember what
yeah.
happened.
That
Um,
was so many
yeah.
sold out events there. I was just like, cancel, cancel, cancel. Yeah.
So it went. But Joan and us, like we stuck it out together. And during various points of the pandemic, she was practicing on a practice amp on our front porch through a screen door. And then through some like very serious conversations, we decided that we would be each other's pod. And to be able to play loud music together in our practice space, I think was something that we just really needed during that time. And we were very careful but we're very trauma bonded, I
Yeah.
think, at this point in time. So, Joan is a very like strong force in the band. So I'm very proud of this record, and I'm proud that, we did it together as a trio. So this is definitely something that has been in the works for a while, and I'm glad that we now get to show what we've been up to as a threesome for the past couple of years.
I think when stuff grows like or kind of organically like that, it's I don't know, there's something more um I don't know, natural's the right word I'm looking for, but opposed to just like a hard shift where you're like, we're just gonna add a new musician, but like something
Yeah.
that sounds like it kind of grew out of, not even necessity, just kind of like, natural growth of like, oh, this seems to be working. We can maybe do more and just trying something new and liking it and going for it. That's really cool.
It was a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, we had done plenty just as a duo. We had toured Europe 3 times, put out records. Each time had gone to Japan, you know, um, all sorts of stuff. So it was definitely like an organic choice. And we're definitely a band.
Hmm.
When we practice, Joan comes over and stays the night, and we have breakfast together. Like, I mean, we watch like terrible TV together after practice and stuff, like we enjoy hanging out. So it goes beyond the music
Yeah.
for us, but we're very serious musicians too. So it's actually a thrill to get to play with such talented people too. Like both Joan and John um, have a lot of opinions and are a lot of fun to write songs with.
Yeah. It's one of those when you find that like finding creative people is very easy. They're everywhere. But finding like a creative person that you kind of naturally gel with is just so gratifying and excited. I think it makes personally makes me excited to kind of like get out and be more creative and do more things because the exchange of ideas and like your excitement like lifts them up and vice versa. And it's
Yeah,
when
it's
that when
exponential,
yeah, like when it just
you
comes
know?
together, and there's no telling where it comes from. It's sometimes you're like, oh, this is the definite person I should work with, and then you work with them, you're like, no, no.
Cosmic chemistry, man. It's totally cosmic. Yeah, I think that any excuse to make art is a good one. With our band, we definitely, we make our videos, although we did collaborate with some friends of mine for not Spectres, but for Tempers, which came out right before that.
Hmm.
Um, And it's fun doing collaborations too. And I actually designed the cover for our record, and it has a piece of my sculpture because I'm also a fine artist.
Oh, cool.
Uh, yeah, so I do large form ceramics,
Okay.
and that piece in particular is also an instrument. So you can attach contact mics to it, and it becomes a percussive instrument that you can play. Because I'm a drummer and I like to hit things with sticks. So,
And it's not going to break.
no, they are very well built.
Okay.
And my opinion is that if you're building something to be played as an instrument, if it cracks, and that can be fixed. You know,
Okay. Sure.
that's what they're for. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I don't. Sometimes I feel like the person. Maybe it's just in my experience, but like the stuff I create, I'm way less precious of than other people are of it. And to me, I'm just like, yeah, I can make another. Like I did some like public art, and a lot of the ones were getting, I think mine even got vandalized, but I was just like, well, that's part of it now. Like that's it. Once it left my studio, I was just kind of like, well, it's now everyone else's piece to work on. And so is that kind of
Yeah.
like that same feel, like if it cracks, it cracks?
I completely agree. I think that there's a certain amount of needing to let go when you create something and you put it out into the universe, because it can also be interpreted in other people's contexts.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone looks at art coming from their own context. I have no control over that, you know? And what happens, happens. And I think it's very similar to music. Someone might hear a song that I wrote when they're going through a certain period of time in their life or some, certain situation, and it may mean something to them that is different than what it meant to me. I think that's totally okay.
Yeah, and I have even I had this conversation. We're talking about watching bad TV, and there's like an old show from like the 90s, Mad About You, had Helen Hunt in it. I don't know. Are you familiar with it?
I wasn't that a movie?
No, was it? Well,
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
no, no. Okay. Yeah, sure.
and it was like the show that my now ex-wife and I like watched and kind of bonded over. And then like I had gotten divorced and like we were separated, and it was a really tough time in my life. And I'm like, oh, I really like that show. I'm gonna go watch it. And it was like so depressing. And then I watched it recently, and I didn't watch all of it. I watched some of it now, and I'm just like, oh, I feel bad for this couple because now, like being so much older, and I'm like, they don't belong together. Like they're not a good couple. And it's just so weird, like how like every part of my life you can go back and watch the same, like nothing's changed about it, and it's so different, and it has completely different meaning. And it's like that's art means something different to everybody, but even the same art doesn't mean the same thing to someone like 20 years later.
Yeah, I think that that can also apply to maybe bands that we listened to when we were kids. Although I have come full circle with some bands and like come to really adore them all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I remember like I just loved L7 when
Oh
I was
yeah.
a
Yeah.
and later on, I listened to them and I was like, man, these are just pop songs, and like I heard it from like a different perspective. And then like time progressed again, and I was like, yeah, these are pop songs. And I was
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
this shit is good, and then I also I saw them play I think they were doing one of their reunion tours or shows up in San Francisco, and it was seriously one of the best like live shows from a band getting back together that I have ever seen. They just like had such a great time, and their energy and just like the rawness of it was just so good. And I think that when I saw them when I was like 14, maybe I saw different things in them that I liked.
Yeah.
But I still very much appreciate them. So yeah, I think that that could happen with music too.
Yeah,
And, there's some stuff that you leave behind as well,
of
but
course. I
some
mean,
things can grow with you.
it's like I was much more angsty as a teenager, so my music was definitely
As you should be.
yeah harder and more angry. And then as I got as an adult, I'm like, meh, whatever. And I started listening more rock and kind of bluesy stuff. And weirdly enough, over the past year or so, I've noticed that my music has been getting more angsty and angry. And like, I wonder what's bringing that on. But
Gee, wonder.
yeah, but it is such, art is such a reflection of like who we are at the time, but also kind of like helps us. I feel like it's very important because it like helps us work through that stuff too.
Absolutely.
Do
Yeah.
you,
I, speaking of Opaque, a lot of that record was written after this like super traumatic experience I went through with the birth of my son, where, I went to the hospital to give birth and they were understaffed because it was 4th of July. And they just weren't able to help me when I needed help with the labor.
oh
And
no,
the neglect like progressed and progressed to the point where I then needed an emergency C-section that wouldn't have been necessary otherwise.
yeah,
And I was basically told, like, you have to do this now or you and the baby will die. And so
oh my
I didn't
god,
have much of a choice.
yeah.
Um, and that sort of level of neglect and abandonment and betrayal of trust.
Yeah, what
I
should be such a good time? Not a good
I
time, but
wouldn't, I
happy
don't know
time.
if it's a
Yeah,
good time, but
yeah,
a
happy
very
time.
important
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
an intense time for sure.
yeah.
But definitely not death time,
Right.
you know. So yeah, it took a lot, I think, processing that and also, recognizing other periods of like abandonment that, have happened to me throughout my life. And so, the song Interventions was about that. And also Tempers in the sense of this waiting for something and
Hmm.
sort of like playing by the rules and realizing that politeness actually doesn't work and that you need to rip the room apart in order to live and
Yeah,
survive. And I think that that applies a lot to what's going on, in our greater cultural context right now, with fascism being very blatantly on the rise, and a lot of people who um, are in need of help are being abandoned
yeah,
and neglected. And that type of state violence, I think, is really something to be upset about.
absolutely. Yeah. Can I ask? And did everything turn out okay? Is everyone all right?
Everything turned out.
Okay.
Everyone's all right. We
Yeah.
almost didn't make it, but we did. And my kiddo came out healthy as a horse. But, there's that sort of, I think, frustration, with a system that had sort of a contract, like a promise,
Yeah.
that, you would be taken care of and that things would be fair, but things are not always fair. And
No.
that's something that we can't depend on.
Especially
Um,
now where it's just to them you're a customer, not a patient. You know. And it's
yeah, exactly. And it's profit over health,
yeah,
and sort of being treated like a piece of meat, in some sort of assembly line. And I'm was lucky enough to have healthcare in the first place, to be able to be in a hospital.
yeah,
But there's also the question of like, well, you know, um, what kind of structures of power are there to fail us, even if we feel like we do have that sort of stability.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily something that you can count on.
Yeah, yeah, and it's wow, this got deep fast. Yeah, and it's such a trying time because it is that late stage capitalism where it's not about what's right or what's good. It's about, well, how does that affect the bottom line? And it's I was talking with someone and about the tariffs, and they're like, oh, this company that they worked for, they're like, has raised prices. They're like, they're not affected by the tariffs, but they know everyone will write it off as tariff inflation, and they'll just be able to make more money. And it's just like, that's just the worst, man. Like, there's a special place in hell for people like that.
Especially when it comes to, and now you're going to see like my Marxist theory, like when it comes to basic necessities of life,
Yeah.
food, shelter, water, and the ability to thrive, and those are basic things. And I think that people are also entitled to things beyond the basics,
Hmm.
you know, um, everyone should be able to thrive in the arts, and have an arts education. It shouldn't just be a thing that's for, the elite or, people who are crazy enough to dedicate their lives to it and starve,
Yeah.
when no one should have to starve at all,
Yeah. And it's more and more, it's like you see some of these huge name stars and you're like, oh, they put the work in, yada, yada, yada. But then, like, you do a little bit of deep dive and you're like, oh, they came from money.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that kind of just, it ruins their street vibe or like, whatever. And it's just like, oh, to succeed in a creative field, do you now have to come from money? And so some of it's very disappointing.
Yeah, and it's tough too, like when you're doing things like touring, and we live in a capitalist society, and like when you're touring, you are packing up your van and driving from place to place, and you
Yep.
have to eat. And, if there's no place for you to stay, you may have to find some cheap motel and you have to put gas in your tank, and no one likes supporting the fossil fuel industry,
No,
you
no.
know?
Yeah.
But like, bands have to get paid to be
Yep.
able to do that. And, that relies on people buying t-shirts or records or, paying for streams and things like that. Um, and so, it's unfortunate, but it's also true. And when we tour places like Europe, there's definitely a different understanding of the value of art.
Hmm.
And promoters and audiences in general are more I think just I'm totally generalizing here,
Sure. Yeah.
but there's sort of more of an understanding of like, oh, I want to support this artist because I like what they're doing, and that's going to take something beyond just telling them like, hey, nice show. Can I get a free
Right.
sticker?
Yeah. 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 For
Which
sure.
is fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm all down to give free stickers too, Um, and also understanding where different people come from, like
Yeah.
you support how you can. But it's just, yeah, capitalism sucks, man.
Yeah.
Capitalism sucks.
We're we're
But
uh
there.
we're lucky enough to book some musicians for some of our events, and some of them are like, oh, we don't necessarily expect to get paid. I'm like, no, no, you should. Like,
Mm.
my budget's not the hugest in the world, but I should be giving you something for your service. And like, I understand you'll have like the tip jar out, but I am benefiting from you playing. I should return that favor. And even when we went and saw the Gimmies, we were lucky enough to be, comped tickets. So I bought a couple, I bought their album and a shirt, and I bought an album and a shirt from the opener because I'm like, they're not getting anything from me being here. I should at least, buy some merch and,
That's cool.
you know, and then I kind of broke my business partner's heart when I'm like, yeah, hopefully the venue doesn't take too much of a cut. And he's like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, some venues take cuts of merch. He's like, what? And I'm like, it's a thing.
It's very true, especially
Yeah.
they start dividing things into like soft goods and hard goods. So like t-shirts versus records.
Oh,
Uh, and yeah, it gets unnecessarily complicated very fast.
yeah, and there's just more paperwork you got to keep track. I'm like, it's just, and he's like, how the hell did that happen? I'm like, I don't. Some shady guy did it, I'm sure, and got away with it, and then it became the norm. So it's just it's almost like the pay to play version of merch, where like you have to sell X number of tickets in order to play here, kind of thing. So, but,
Yeah, that's why, it's we have to support our DIY community, and the smaller venues that are basically incubators for bands who are coming up,
yeah, for
and
sure.
support them. And in the Bay Area, I think we're really lucky to have a variety of smaller places. There should be more, and I
Yeah,
think that there used to be more. And we've lost some beloved venues to things like gentrification, neighbor complaints. Also, just things are expensive, and it's hard to run a club, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
or also, mismanagement on their side too,
Sure. Yeah. That and it's like even the businesses that survived coming out of COVID didn't did it at a cost. And sometimes that piper is coming to be paid now. And it's like if you didn't make that grant back or the loan back or whatever you did to, hustle to keep your business going, it could close now because of what happened 5 years ago. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Um, is it the San Francisco Bay Area? That's where you
Yeah. So
So we
John and
just
Hmm?
saw the two opening bands. I think were from San Francisco. Kate Clover.
Oh, is she really from San Francisco?
I don't know. I thought she said they were based out of San Francisco.
I did see her play here,
Yeah,
but I didn't know that she was from here.
maybe I just
Um,
got that confused. And the other one was oh God, um, schizophonics or something like that. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
wasn't sure if they
but
maybe knew them.
there's a lot of bands out there. There's a lot of bands. A lot of great bands. Yeah. So we're from the Bay Area. Um, I grew up in Oakland. John grew up, kind of near Richmond.
Hmm.
And Joan moved out here from Florida. And she moved out here. This is how we met her, actually, is she came out here to help coordinate Maximum Rock and Roll, which was this like legendary punk magazine
Oh,
that was
cool.
run out of San Francisco. And also, she knew that by moving to San Francisco, she would be able to have better access to gender affirming care for her
Sure.
transition.
Yeah.
Um, so, we met through that because John and I both did volunteering for Maximum. And yeah, so we're very, very Bay Area. And I think that the only reason why we've been able to stay in the Bay Area is like because we have been able to tour and travel. Because as much as I love the Bay Area, it's wonderful to leave and it's wonderful to come home. But yeah,
Yeah.
so we've been here for a long time.
One thing that a question that I thought of a little ways back, and I wanted to ask. So, well, you're a sculptor and a fine artist and a musician, and we're talking about like dealing with emotions and different times. Whatnot? Is there like does one hit one kind of emotion more than the other? Like, if you're struggling, do you lean towards music? If you're happy, do you work in ceramics? Is there like any correlation?
Nope,
No, just
not at
whatever.
all. Not at all. I find both modes of expression for whatever it is that I'm feeling, and whatever story that I want to tell. And I think that there's a lot of parallels between the physicality of drumming, you
Hmm.
know, physicality of percussion and singing with sculpting, especially with clay, because you're working with your hands, you're using your muscles, you're thinking about things in 3D.
Yep.
I think that when, I'm doing percussion, in a way, it's sculpting in the air
Hmm.
because you're creating sound, you're moving air. And similarly, when I am sculpting with clay, I'm creating a form that's basically playing with light. So I'm thinking about how air and light are reacting to the physical form of the clay. And when I'm doing my acoustic pieces, I've done several large form sculptures that, like I was telling you,
Hmm.
are also instruments. I'm thinking about the clay body and how it resonates
Sure.
as acoustic form. So, basically like doing experiments about like, okay, if I were to make this tube, if it were, doing the different sizes or shapes of the tube lengths and like the size of the orifices,
Yeah.
um, how that would change the sound. So I'm thinking about like the engineering of it, but also when you're looking at the form, how does it read musically uh, in a visual way, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, kinda. For
These are
sure.
things I think about a lot, and also, composition. So composition of a song, composition of a painting, or a sculpture, and how it's approached from different angles. I think these are all ways that, I play with the expression, and, it's all coming from me. So when you're thinking about like, oh, I'm happy, I'm going to work with something else, like I'm not sure if I, am able to separate my emotions because I don't even know if I'm able to like consider emotions happy or sad. You know,
Okay, sure.
they're kind of complex. And
Yeah.
so I think that things are a little bit more complicated. And so I think things can be happy and sad at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest problems is most people want things to be A or B, and it's never A or B. It's usually a little bit of R, some of T, like it's there is no black and white in this in life at all. And it's, and there's
Yeah,
something beautiful about that like it shouldn't be.
it's tempting to like lean into the binary,
Yeah.
but I think that we miss so much because there's so much in between. And you're right, things are not all one or the other,
Yeah.
and they never will be,
Oh yeah. No matter how much they want them to be.
And to that, I will drink more coffee.
there's so when you're building these percussive instruments, you can't know what they're going to sound like, right? Because I mean, wet
Isn't that
clay,
thrilling?
that's I feel like that's yes, and somewhat stressful. And is it ever like when you fire it where you're like, ugh, this isn't what I wanted at all? Like, is this the wrong?
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Also, there's something about ceramics that I think is really unique, and maybe it also has a lot to do with being a live performer. But you have to move past the cracks or the mistakes, You can't dwell on the imperfections. You
Hmm.
have to keep moving forward, and you have to lean into things that might not have gone how you have intended. Because when I don't know how familiar you are with like the process of doing ceramics, but there's
I've
multiple
done
firing.
some. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're dealing with like all of the elements of like clay or, earth,
Hmm.
water, fire, air, and whatever chemicals, or elements and minerals that you put on top of it, to create a glaze or,
Yeah.
sort of surface treatment. And there's just a million things that could change depending on where it is in the kiln, how much air the kiln decided to let in that day, and even though a lot of kilns these days are electronically programmed,
Hmm.
there's still only so much control you have over it, and that's okay. and also just the way that a form is balancing and holding its own weight. And then when it's fired, it will vitrify and maybe lean one other way or, not be able to hold its own weight. And then there will be like a crack. Um, there's just, and you have to be okay with that. And there's some pieces that I thought like would totally sound a certain way, and they decided that they would sound how they wanted to sound. So I did an installation for a show that's opening this week, actually, in San Francisco at Root Division,
Hmm.
which is a nonprofit arts organization. And it's for their Introductions 2025 show. And I literally came back from tour on Tuesday last week. We went to LA. I came back, pulled it out of the kiln. It was still warm, somehow got that thing, which I swear weighs like 500 plus pounds, to
Yeah.
the gallery. It was like basically hanging out of the back of my van. I thought I might have had to have like rent a truck.
Yeah.
Hopefully I didn't. And then, plopped it in the middle of the gallery where the curator wanted it. And that was the first time I had a chance to like use my mallets to figure out where the sweet spots were and how I was going to perform on it for a reception that was happening like 2 days later.
Oh my God.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
and but that's the thing. And I think that that's part of like what makes those pieces really interesting is that they have a secret. And, you have to really know and be familiar with the piece itself in order to play it. It's not like playing a piano, where
Yeah.
depend on pressing a key and that will be the note that happens. There's a lot of like in between, kind of like what we were talking about, like not
Yeah.
being able to necessarily depend on something being what it says it's going to be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And it's that is something that I have struggled with since I was a kid, trying to, because I want everything to be perfect and nothing is. And so you like as art
Either.
progresses, it's like I've literally had to learn how to kind of let go of that expectation or want. And years and years ago, actually in the very beginning of Inebri-art, one of my friends took away my eraser. He's like, you can't have an eraser anymore. He's like, you're racing too much. Just go. And because of that, I ended up switching from like pencil and graphite to pen and ink, where it's so much more permanent. And once the line's there, nothing you can do about it other than try and refine it, incorporate it. And not everything's perfect, and some of it's, sometimes you make garbage and you just be like, well, I throw that piece away or I leave that in the sketchbook, and sometimes I just write something mean on the piece of paper and then I just go on to the next one. And it's kind of developed into somewhat of my style, I guess. Like, I don't ever really think of my stuff as having a style, but I think everyone must. But yeah, it's and kind of like getting to drawing to a point where you're like, I don't like this, but then continuing to work it and refine it, and then by the end you're like, oh no, now I kind of do like it. So it's it's I would say it's more about the process of doing the drawing and less about what comes out of it. I don't really show most of my stuff. It's more just for me to kind of work through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's one of the things, earlier you were talking about how you're a lot less precious with your work
Oh
than
yeah, yeah.
are. I think as artists, we recognize that everything is a process. So everything you make now is what you bring to your next piece.
Yeah.
And so it's not really about what you've already made, it's about what you're making next. And I think that a really good example of that is like when you're doing live gesture drawing with a model. Have you ever
Hmm.
done that before?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's our longest running event is we bring a model into a bar.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
So
Yeah,
we just 14 years.
yep.
Yeah.
And you have 2 minutes
Yep.
to do something with one pose and then they're on to the next. And you just have to be on your toes, and you're just it's not really about what you're drawing, but it's about what you're seeing.
Hmm.
And then that's sharpening your senses so that you can work up to when you're doing a longer pose. And so it's all about like basically kind of warming up your skills.
Yeah. And I
And that's
typically find,
performance.
yeah, and I typically find the ones that I like the best are like the 5 minute drawings
Mm-hmm.
where like I have a little bit more time. I've kind of like, dusted off the cobwebs and loosened up and, had, a beer already. And, but it doesn't give me enough time to like really fret and go back and be like, well, I don't like this. It's just something so right about that 5, maybe 10 minutes where it's just like you have to do it to get it done. And you don't have time to be precious like that. It is, you just have to do it. And then there's the one day where you realize, oh, I don't have to draw the whole model. I can draw what I want. Like I'm just going to draw their face. I'm just going to draw their hand, or I'm going to draw, you know, I'm going to leave out the legs, or just that thought of like, there's no one telling me that I have to draw the whole model in here. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, and it's absolutely one of my favorite things to do. I love gesture drawing.
It's very liberating,
Yeah,
and I think, if we're talking about music being a parallel, we jam.
yeah,
We're really not a hippie band. We're very much a punk band, or a rock. I don't know. We're post-punk band, but we definitely like can just play and like let loose and not be too hung up on structure. And that's a really great way to like work out ideas. You know, um, I don't think I would ever make an audience like suffer through something like that. Uh, but,
yeah.
I have played in improv bands. I played with Fred Frith uh, and Willie Wynett when I was at Mills. And, I played in Fred's improv band. And I think that gets you really honed into listening to your bandmates.
Hmm.
'Cause I think so often, we're really like, if you're in a band situation, you're really nervous, maybe like as a drummer too, you're playing really hard and you're not really paying attention to what your bandmates are doing. And so you basically have a bunch of like these little independent cells that are kind of playing this song, but
Yep.
they're not listening to each other and reacting to each other and acting as their own organism. And I think that that's really, really important. Otherwise, it feels really hollow and stiff to me.
Hmm.
I really appreciate it when a band is able to react in the moment, and you can tell that they are um, like really in tune to each other. They're watching each other. They are in sync with what they are doing and on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
And no one is like trying to just sort of like stand apart or anything, or like, have some sort of an ego that is making them, where they're stepping on other people in the band. It's all about working together as like one weird nebulous creature. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. Otherwise, just listen to the studio recording, you
Yeah.
know? Um, when I see a live band, like I want to see people up there accomplishing something together, and I want to see them bleed and sweat through it and break a string and then like work through it and also like say something that is either funny or super awkward or any of those things, and that's what like I just think is so exciting about live music,
Yeah.
and that's more important to me than playing every note perfectly.
In I felt that like a relation to this. And when we started, I told you I don't plan questions, and for that very reason, I find if you plan questions, you're not listening because you're not thinking about what the person's saying. You're thinking like, all right, how do I segue to question two or three? And it's just much more natural this way, and we have way more interesting conversations. I wouldn't have thought to ask you about sculpting or like none of this would have happened if it wasn't just more this kind of natural, like I'm listening to you when you speak and vice versa. And it's I think the world would be a better place if people actually listened to other people, and like really just
Imagine
listen, you know.
that.
It's
Yeah,
because most of the time someone's angry about something that someone said that they didn't actually say because they meant something else, you know. So,
it's true.
but this is the unfortunate part where I have to do like the PR part. So, Opaque, the LP on Dirt Cult Records comes out
Yeah.
September 5th. Where can they go to get that?
You can pre-order it from the Dirt Cult website. I think he has a Bandcamp, and the label is super cool, run by a very sweet person named Chris. And yeah, support them. Pre-order our record. Also, speaking of art, if you pre-order a record, it's totally getting into the PR part. I made a series of risograph prints, posters
Oh,
that are all individual like risograph prints.
yeah.
And those come with the pre-orders.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
trying to hype that up.
Yeah.
Um, so you can get a Megan March original piece of artwork if you do the pre-order. And so,
And when does your show with your sculpture open again? Is that next week?
it's opening this week. In fact, I think technically it opens today. But
Okay.
there is an opening reception until September 13th. However, I will be in New York. I think playing either Philly or Brooklyn that day. We are going to do a short East Coast tour, so anyone out there can catch us. We're going to be in Philly, DC, Brooklyn, and then we're doing a recording for WFMU. And then that's on the Sunday of the 14th. And then we're flying out the 15th back to San Francisco and playing at Great American Music Hall with Unwound. And that's going to be our official record release.
Oh, nice.
So you can catch us on East or West Coast.
That's cool.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm looking forward. Oh, the one other thing is there like YouTube videos of you playing your sculpture?
that's a great question.
I'm
There
really
are
intrigued. Like, I want to
videos.
see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my Instagram,
Okay.
which Megan March Studio.
Okay.
And you can check out some of my work there. I have yet to put up, a video of my most recent piece, but there's some other pieces that I performed at the ICA in San Francisco,
Okay.
Institute for Contemporary Art, and that was back in April. And so you can check out some video of it there.
Because I definitely want to see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, it's interesting because when you make an instrument that is not conventional, it makes a sound that we aren't familiar with.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of people have asked me how to describe the sound, and the closest thing I can think of is maybe gamelan because it's very percussive and kind of bell-like.
Okay.
But it's definitely its own texture. It's
All
its
right.
own.
Cool. And I want to personally invite you. We are doing our first pop-up art show. We used to do them a couple times a year, and we haven't done it since like long before COVID. But we're calling it Post-it Modern Art. So all the art is going to be on Post-its.
I love that.
So I'll shoot you a message through your Instagram, and if you're interested, feel free to send some work. And it's going to be a little distillery that we've been working with for years, so it should be a lot of fun.
That's great. And where would that be?
It is in Plymouth, Mass. So the distillery is maybe a 5 minute ride from Plymouth Rock and, all the, awful historic parts of the town that people love to celebrate. Um, and it's going to be it'll go up. It's just going up for a weekend. So it's going to go up on Friday. There'll be a reception Saturday and it'll come down Sunday. It's going to be the last weekend in September.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
lots happening in September, huh?
Yeah, I hope so. I like to be busy, so I don't, but this was awesome. I had such a good time, and hopefully you did
Thanks for
too.
having me.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime you guys have stuff going on, feel free to reach out. We'll have you on the show. And our listeners can tune in again next week and hear who we're talking to then.
Sounds great.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.